the Dallas Stars. And Glen Gulutzan taking over for Peter DeBoer after that rather interesting decision and then post-game exchange with Jake Oettinger in Game 6 of the Edmonton series in the conference final. This is a club that has lost in the conference final 3 consecutive years, including back to the Oilers. And I'm going to start right there, Nill, because Jim Nill is now one general manager of the year, 3 consecutive years. Some interesting movement with this club. And I also have to think that the window for Dallas is starting to close a little bit because you could only knock at the door so many times before having to get through. And I think this is something that we talked about during the playoffs last year, that something always seems to happen in Dallas during the course of the playoffs. You look at their club, you think they're all set up, everything's ready to go. They're going to make that next step forward, and they're going to finally win the Stanley Cup again for the first time since 1999. And something always manages to derail this train.
It does, and that's the way we talked about Connor Hellebuck just a minute ago with the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
The thing that I worry about with the Dallas Stars, they got a really good lineup, no doubt about that. But listen to these names. What are you hearing? Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Matt Duchene. These are not young players. These guys are in the twilight of their career. And so the window for Dallas to do something is closing. They got to get going on doing something to go places in the playoffs. Can they do it? Let's go. You're going to do it, I'm sure. Go through their adds and drops and see where we come out on that.
2 of the players you mentioned, Ben and Duchene, re-signed as pending UFAs. Duchene, 4 years, $4.5 million AAV. The captain, Ben, 1 year, $1 million with a potential of $3 million additional in bonuses. They also re-upped center Colin Blackwell and RFAs that stay with the Stars, Nils Lundkvist, defenseman, and center Maverick Bork. Now, let's go to the ads because there's not a lot here. Center Rodak Faksa comes over from St. Louis, but he had actually started his career and played his first 9 seasons with the Stars. And Nathan Bastian, on August 9th, joined Dallas, signed as a UFA coming over from New Jersey. Here's who they lose. Mason Marchment traded to Seattle for draft picks this past year and another one next year. Mikael Granlund signed as a UFA by Anaheim. Cody Ceci signed as a UFA by the Kings on defense. Evgeny Dodonov, right wing, signed as a UFA by the Devils. And Matt Dumba traded to Pittsburgh with a 2028 second-round pick in a deal for a defensive prospect. So when we look at this club, there's a lot of offensive pop there. And we've talked about it. But for some reason, literally everybody went south during the course of the playoffs. But their first line, Rope Hintz, centering Jason Robertson and Mikko Rantanen. Wyatt Johnson centers the second unit with Matt Duchene and Tyler Seguin on the wings. Jamie Benn is now with third line with Sam Steele and Maverick Bork. And Oscar Bach with Rodak Faksa and Colin Blackwell. So, front, I still like this team a lot. And they're also going to have a healthy Miro Heiskanen back on their back line. He'll be paired with Esa Lindell, Thomas Harley, and Ilya Labushkin will be the second pairing, and Lee and Nils Lundkvist round out the defense core. This is a good team.
It is a good team, and it's a team that's going to give Winnipeg a battle to get that first place. If, in fact, they are the 2 teams, we've also got to talk about Colorado in that battle. They are a good team. I think they'd be better if they had Granlund and they had Marchment still. Those are the 2 big losses I see for them, but they had to move Marchment, I think, because of salary cap issues. Granlund walked away as a free agent. And you can't keep everybody when you're the GM of the team. I like their team. I don't know how far they can go, but we can say one thing for sure about Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars. They're in the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs. And so, where they'll go in the playoffs, who knows? But I think they will be battling in the Central Division for first place this season. They have a good enough team to do that. But what you said at the top still holds true. The window is closing. They have to do something soon because that window is closing on their chances to win a championship.
They will have Mikko Rantanen for an entire year now. And you remember us talking during the course of the playoffs last year that we were wondering, based on his performance in those first two rounds, and he had a run of 17 points between the Colorado and Winnipeg series, but then he tailed off like everybody else and only had 3 assists in the series against the Edmonton Oilers. But that run that he was on, capped off by that magical 4-point third period that included a hat trick in Game 7 against the Colorado Avalanche, was something of which we were saying, hey, is it possible for a player to win the Conn Smythe Trophy without even making the conference final?
Yeah. And the most magical part about that, Vic, you summed it up. The fact that he did it against the Colorado Avalanche, it was giving them the middle finger like crazy. The place where he'd been, where he didn't want to leave, where they traded him to Carolina because they didn't think they could match what he wanted as a contract. And he didn't see it coming. And now all of a sudden he gets to play against them in the playoffs and really put it to them. It was quite a side story what Rantanen did to the Colorado Avalanche.
There's also another side story that's making the rounds with him being fined $99,000 for missing mandatory military service in Finland. He had submitted an application to start his date later, and apparently you have to fulfill some sort of service if you're a male by the age of 30. He did not do that, so he is getting fined for that. But I'm pretty certain that the contract that he signed with Dallas will more than make up for that.
Oh, I think he's going to have a few coppers in his treasure chest to be able to pay that fine.
But more to that offense that we've spoken about, how do you explain so many high-end players just completely flatlining as the playoffs went on? The time where you're supposed to define yourself as a playoff player to make your team a Stanley Cup contender, and between Robertson, who started to score a little bit towards the end, but Hintz, Rantanen, as we mentioned, Duchene, Johnson, it all went south. And it was literally unexplainable how so many high-end athletes could be squeezing the stick that tightly.
Let's talk about the biggest change the Dallas Stars made. They let go Peter DeBoer, and they're bringing in Glen Gulutzan, who's on his second head coaching stint with Dallas. Jim Nill let Glen Gulutzan go when he took over as GM. And now he looks around, he listens, he watches, and he sees that Gulutzan has done a really good job as the assistant coach, power play coach for the Edmonton Oilers. Yep. Fabulous relationship with the guys in Edmonton, the young players. Jim Nill felt that he needed a guy that would have that kind of relationship with his players. And so Glen Gulutzan gets a second shot at the Dallas Stars, and we'll see what he does. This is where we don't know because we're not in the locker room, but did they tail off because the message got old? Did they tail off because the message just wasn't getting through? And Jim Nill recognized that and made the change. We don't know, but obviously Jim Nill felt that a change was necessary to have any chance to go to the next level.
But I think you got to remember one thing also is that this team had a 1-0 lead over Edmonton in the conference final. They scored 5 goals in the third period of Game 1 against Edmonton. and that wound up only scoring 5 goals for the rest of the series. So where does that disconnect happen so quickly with DeBoer, or is it something that's simply accumulating over a period of time?
I think it's accumulating over a period of time. And I'm not blaming Peter DeBoer for the Dallas Stars getting eliminated at all. I know Peter DeBoer's a great coach in the National Hockey League. But when Jim Nill makes his evaluations of the team, of their potential, of what they've got right now, does exit interviews, watches the situation that you talked about with Jake Oettinger in that last game, he makes his decision. And you know what? I give Jim Nill a lot of credit, because he could sit there and say, if I bring Gulutzan back, the guy that I fired, I'm going to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look like an idiot. He looks like a guy that just observes and tries to make the best decision he can. And we'll have to wait and see how Glen Gulutzan does with this team.
He certainly has a good lineup, backed up by goaltender Jake Oettinger, and Ceci DeSmith expected once again to be the backup.